Welcome everybody to AADA's first Fireside Chat of the year. It's Resilience, Purpose, and the Actuarial Part, a conversation with Elash Mistry, moderated by Nalen Naidoo. So first of all, I'll start with who AADA is. AADA is the African Actuarial Development Academy. It's a Pan-African group looking to promote training and development of actuarial talent across Africa. It was founded by myself yesterday, Kazim, Yvonne Palm, and Mukami Njiru. And true to our maths roots, our acronym is AD. So if you're looking for how to pronounce us, it's AADA. So before I introduce the speakers for today, let me mention a couple of things. There is a Q&A button there for you to drop your questions throughout the conversation, so please do use it. Also, there is French translation, and I'm going to try and say this in French. Traduction français est disponible. Voulez donc sélectionner l'option en base de votre écran. So I hope I've not killed French, but if you go there to the French translation, you will hear it spoken by somebody better than me. Okay, on to our speakers. I'll start with our moderator. Nalen studied business science at University of Cape Town. He qualified as an actuary in 2007 and has worked across various countries. South Africa, where he's from, the United Kingdom, the United States, and Singapore. His career also spans various fields, so he's done life insurance, general insurance, retirement. In 2022, he left the insurance industry and went on to what we call wider fields. I think he's the only one I know who is into property, if that's the right thing he is into. But he's the CEO of Property 24. So but he also holds some executive roles. So that's Nalen in a quick shoot. Then I will talk about Elash. Elash is a qualified actuary and business development actuary at Hanover. He has a bachelor's of economic science at the University of Witwatersrand. I hope I've pronounced that properly. He qualified as a fellow of the Actuarial Society of South Africa in 2017 and has built a diverse career across three major South African life insurers and the regulator. As Africa's first blind actuary, Elash brings a unique perspective on resilience, adaptability, and purpose-driven careers. So it gives me a lot of pleasure to welcome Elash and Nalen to the first Fireside Chat for AADA. Nalen, over to you to take us through the chat.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Jacinda, and really happy to be here speaking to everyone on the call. Really, though, the conversation that I'm really looking forward to is with Elash. He's a special actuary for all of us here and a source of inspiration for many of us. And so I look forward to asking him a few questions and delving into his career and what drives him. So, Elash, welcome to the call.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me, and thanks for all the kind words.
Brilliant. Yeah, so maybe let's just get started about your actuarial path. You know, most of us can sort of remember our early years and when we first heard about actuarial science. But let's hear it from you. Can you take us back to your early schooling years? What were you most curious about as a student? What subjects did you naturally gravitate towards?
Nalen, I'll start by saying I attended a special school which was meant for the blind. I had to attend a boarding school in what we call KwaZulu-Natal in South Africa, which is a province away from where I live. It was the only school available to the Indian race in South Africa, only school for blind people. So even though there was a school about 15 kilometers from where I lived in Pretoria, I had to travel away from home because of the apartheid system. At school, everything was done customized for the blind. So we learned in Braille. Braille is a system of raised dots that we read with our fingers, obviously because we can't use sight. In terms of my interests, I was very interested in the things I couldn't see, right? Funny enough, I was interested in, strangely enough, construction, machinery. Um, whenever there was construction going on outside or on the road, or if there was a big truck coming around, I would ask people to tell me what's going on. I was just fascinated about that. I don't know where it came from, but that is what I was interested in. When I did some introspection later on, I discovered that I like practicality. I like seeing things and understanding how they work. So I wanted to know, that machine that I'm hearing, how does it work? And I became very curious. So anything that had an application that was interesting to understand, I was curious about. Um, in terms of subjects, naturally, then I leaned towards subjects that were more practical, that had some kind of application, that were real in my mind. Um, so physiology, I did physiology at school, was a very practical subject, an understanding of the human body and how it works. And for me, the human body became some kind of machine, right? And I had to understand how it works. So I loved physiology. Um, I excelled at the very theoretical subjects like history, chemistry, but I didn't enjoy them because it was pure rote learning at the time. Maths I enjoyed thoroughly, but more so the applied parts. So when it came to applying maths to finance or applying mathematics in physics, I enjoyed that because I could see how it works. Yeah, I think I've covered your three questions.
Oh, amazing, Elash. Yes, that brain of yours working so systematically in terms of working out how the world works is fantastic. And so, how did you first discover actuarial science then? What made it a career path worth pursuing for you?
Yeah, look, I didn't know such a thing as actuarial science existed until my grade 12 year, when it was time to start getting serious about choosing a career. One of my teachers joked with me and said, I bet you're going to become a lawyer or a singer. Singer, I knew I definitely won't become. I have no singing skills. Um, and I vowed not to become a lawyer. The reason was that I was hell bent on not following one of the traditional careers that blind people would usually follow. At the time, careers were very limited for blind people, and we naturally got pushed into being either a switchboard operator. Now that's a new term to everyone. In those days, you didn't have a button that you pressed and you got through to a certain place. You had to go through the switchboard. So you would call the hospital or the call center, and they'd ask you who you want to speak to, and the switchboard operator would then direct your call to the relevant person. So that was a sort of job for a blind person, and that's where you'd find most of us working. Singing, I think, became the blind person's thing because of Ray Charles and Stevie Wonder. Um, so we did an interest finding test, which one or most people I would recommend should do when you're choosing a career, just to understand what are you interested in, and where are your strengths and where are your challenges. And this interest finding test then pointed out that I love logical thinking and I love numbers. So then the question was, what do I do with that kind of information as a blind person? And our career counselor at the time said, why don't you go and just research a field called actuarial science? And I was very interested because the word actuarial meant nothing at that point. If he said something like animal science or building science, there was some connection. It's to say it's the science to do with animals or the science to do with buildings, but actuarial was a foreign word. So I went to our school library, and there was very limited literature available in Braille at the time. And we had this encyclopedia, and I looked up actuarial science, and there was all of 2 paragraphs that explained it. It was enough to hook my interest, though, and to make me decide that I want to pursue this career. Um, I must also say there was a lot of trust in this career counselor, because 2 paragraphs was not enough to go by, but I felt like I could trust it. It sort of tied in with the logical thinking. And I think I probably had a bit of an incorrect understanding, as in I thought, I'll be sitting and solving like what I'm used to, like brain puzzles, and all of those mathematical things. But yeah, it turned out to be very different. As much as it is logical thinking and numbers, actuarial science is way more advanced than just these brain puzzles, that we used to.
Amazing, amazing, Elash. Thanks. So, I mean, I think this is the most extreme career choices possible. It was either singer or actuarial or actuary, and I think from the professional's perspective, we are very glad that you are here in the actual profession. Though, if you wish to, maybe show us what that singing talent was, we can make some space for you at the end of this fireside chat if you wish. That you can think about it and let me know. And so, I mean, this actuarial part that you found, I mean, it's extremely long and demanding, as all of us on the call know. What gave you the confidence to pursue it? What kept you committed over all the time that was required?
Yeah, thanks for that question, Nalen. It took me 18 years after the degree to qualify. So something must have kept me there, right? And I know I had a lot of determination to finish. Um, it's that last exam that took me the longest. And just before I was going to quit, I decided, okay, this will be the last attempt at my fellowship paper. And if I don't get it, I'll have to now draw a line in the sand. And then I passed that exam and then just had to finish the remaining one. So I always sat and wondered what gave me so much of grit and determination and wanting to finish this. Um, and there are a few reasons that came up that I'll share with you. The one is I wanted to open up doors for other blind people. I wanted to change that understanding that a blind person should be a singer or a switchboard operator or someone begging with a can in their hands in the corner of the street. I was really determined to change that perception and to open up doors using my skills. So my understanding and my fortune of being able to study pure maths at school, I wanted to share with others, because there are many schools for the blind in South Africa. Well, I wouldn't say many, I'd say 8 to 10 of them, but very few. In fact, at the time, there were only 2 of them that actually taught blind people any subjects with mathematical content. So that limited us in terms of career choices. I think the most exciting field a blind person could get into was law, because of what we were taught. So yeah, that kept me going to say I must finish this in order to open up that path. And the last thing I want to mention is that this realization came sort of recently, when I've started reflecting back on my life and questioning what gave me so much of determination to stick in there for 18 years. And it goes back to early childhood. Um, so I told you I had to attend a boarding school. Um, and naturally, what I realized is that that is quite traumatic for a child.
Hmm.
So there's naturally feelings of abandonment, and a yearning to get back home. We only got back home like 4 times a year during the school holidays.
Hmm.
It was very difficult there, being away from your parents at the age of 6. And I realized then as a child, what I had learned to do is to set myself apart from everyone. The reason for that was to become accepted and to give myself a sense of belonging. So you would know that naturally the child that performs well that brings in the good grades or that does well at sports is the favored child, right? That's just how we behave. And I didn't do this consciously, but when I look back at it, I had taken the decision to say, I need to become extra special in order to be accepted. And I think that is what carried me through the 18 years at a very subconscious level. It is that reptile brain that said, this is a matter of survival. You have to finish this or else you'll be regarded as a failure. Not only in my own mind, but in the eyes of others. And because I grew up with that kind of programming, I stuck through the 18 years and made sure I finished this. It was destructive. I was already married at the time, and it had a major impact on my family studying for so long and having nothing to show for it, and each time failing and saying, I'm going to try again. People eventually get tired of you. But as I say, that programming from early childhood is then what kept me going, is what gave me the determination and the grit.
Sure. Gosh, what an inspirational story, and it's just amazing for us to hear on this call that sense of purpose, that deep belonging, that grit, that resilience that has driven you over that long period of time. I have no doubt that not just the people on this call, but all the people around in society and even your family that would have had to be alongside you over this entire journey still look at this inspirationally, because it's absolutely amazing. So thank you for sharing that. And I really want to deep dive a little bit into some of the conversations about this grit and resilience and just how you approached this over the years. So maybe let's just talk about your studies and early career. How did you actually prepare? How did you approach learning and preparation, especially when it's complex areas like modeling or financial mathematics? And how did you get yourself ready for that?
Sure, yeah, I'd love to explain that. So I attended a school for the blind where everything was adapted for the blind. So we did all our work in Braille. Some of our teachers could read Braille and understand it. Yeah, and I'm not ashamed to say that when I was at school, there were no computers around. So everything was done very mechanically. And just when I started university, it was a complete shift. Firstly, moving from a nurturing environment for the blind to the wide world, the sighted world, where nothing or very little is adapted for a blind person. So I had to learn to use a computer because the computer was the only way that I could do my work and communicate with the sighted world. So I needed a means to be able to, for instance, write out my assignments, and lecturers must be able to read it. And the computer was then the only method. I use a device called the Braille display, which is what you can think of as a Braille screen. So what happens is, as you type on the computer, this Braille screen would show you what you typed, half a line at a time. So because of moving away from Braille on paper to Braille on computer, I had to develop notation. The one limitation with the Braille display is that it only shows text half a line of the screen at a time, and it only shows text in straight lines. So something like x squared, where it's x with the little 2 superscripted, can't be shown on the Braille display in the same way that it's in the print format. So I would use notation similar to coding. So I would use X and the shift 6, which is called the caret. So say to symbolize it, whatever follows the caret sign is now superscripted. Similarly, I had to make notation for all the actuarial symbols, the A angle N with the 12 at the top, all the complicated symbols. Yeah. So everything had to be written in a straight line. The double and triple integrals were very challenging. So naturally, a lot had to happen in my mind. So visualization was very important. Memory was very important. And working harder than usual. I spent more time making material accessible to me than actually studying. But the benefit of that was, as I was making the material accessible, I was indirectly actually starting to study.
Hmm.
Yeah, so the challenge was to communicate accurately, so if you had x squared versus x to the power a plus b, you had to make sure that you put the a plus b in brackets to say it's the x is raised to the a plus b, not just the a.
Hmm.
Um, and because if I had typed that up in the exam, I had to make sure I was not there to tell the lecturer that this is what I meant. I had to make sure that what I wrote expressed what I wanted to.
Oh,
In terms of models, so fortunately with the Braille display and the software I have, I'm able to use text-based software. When I say text-based, so PowerPoint, for instance, would not be text-based. It has a lot of graphical information. But something like Word and Excel and Outlook are all text-based. I know there is graphics in there, but I'm able to use Excel. So Excel, I would know the cell coordinates and what's within the cell. Um, Once I navigate my way around a spreadsheet, I'm able to use keyboard shortcuts to move around that spreadsheet because I have a visual picture of what that spreadsheet looks like. So if I had to simplify that, for instance, I would know there's a block that has 5 columns, and that's the first region of the spreadsheet. And then it's separated by a column, followed by the second region, and so forth. And then the spreadsheet has like 3 or 4 tabs within it. Charts are a challenge. Anything graphical is a challenge on computer.
yeah.
But when I was at university, we used plastic sheets, so cellophane sheets with a rubber mat. So if you place a cellophane sheet on a rubber mat and you draw with a pen on it, you'll be able to feel the indentations or almost like scratch marks. And that's how I got around to graphs.
Oh,
Yeah, these days we have fancy machines that can raise a graph. So you put this through what seems like a photocopy machine, and it would raise the graph. So you have that textured graph. Never liked 3D graphs because they always confused me. But funny enough, I had a lecturer at university for a subject called multivariate calculus, which only dealt with 3D graphs. And we did that entire course verbally, to the extent that he was able to give me a verbal description that would actually help me to visualize that 3D shape and be able to capture it mathematically. So I take my hat off to that lecturer for the effort he's put in.
oh, that is substantial insights into some of both the trials and tribulations, Elash. I mean, absolutely amazing. And it's so good to hear about the lecturer that it's almost a life-changing experience when you meet a lecturer like that. I mean, maybe the next question then, let's talk about the people. So who are some of the people that most supported you along your journey, and what behaviors and attitudes did you find particularly helpful amongst these people?
Thanks, Nalen. Yeah, when I decided to study actuarial science, I went along to the actuarial department at the university and spoke to the head of department, um, saying that I want to study actuarial science. I am totally blind and I need your support. And I wish I could see the expression on his face. But yeah, he was definitely not happy. He
Mm.
told me that I should reconsider because actuarial science is very difficult and even sighted people struggle. So he doesn't see me passing the course,
Oh,
which was fine. I have a deep understanding for people that have not had exposure to blind people and what they may be capable of. And it's understandable that his reaction was understandable. So I told him I will go back and think about it. And when I thought about it, I decided that difficulty is relative. What's difficult for one may not be difficult for someone else, or the other way around, and it's relative. So I wanted to try. I wanted to try just to make myself happy that this is really difficult before giving up. And I went back to him the next day and I told him, Prof, I respect your view, but I really want to try. Fortunately for me, he was happy for me to try, but I know he probably thought I'll drop out after the first week. We were lucky enough to have a very dedicated retired maths teacher that had joined the disability unit at the university at the time. Her name is Reiki Voigt. She's late now, but a gem of a person. And, there was no reason why she had to be so committed to making me successful with my career. At the same time, we had another blind person attending the same university that wanted to study to become a CA. His name was Joseph, and he had never studied maths. He was at one of the schools for the blind that didn't offer maths. So Reiki helped him as well. I remember days when she would come in with equipment like matchboxes with marbles to demonstrate the concept of a variable, So how many marbles are there in this matchbox? If you don't know, let's call it X, and, working with concepts like that. I remember her purchasing an electric knife so that she could carve out 3D shapes from a sponge, just so that he could feel and understand what this was. But that kind of commitment, and that's what carried me through university. Reiki's commitment and her passion. I still don't know where that came from. When I think about it, I think it came from fighting the system. Reiki was very much one for making things available and accessible and being fair to everyone. She believed that we were victims of the system, both because of our race and our disability. And she believes that the schooling system should have done more to make maths available to us. And I think then her passion to actually overcome that shortfall is what helped us get through at the end. And yeah, I must say, Joseph then went on to become the first blind accountant in South Africa after not doing any maths at school, So he started with a bridging course, and that's where he ended up. My parents could offer a little support. You could see they wanted to give more, but my parents are not really well educated and didn't always understand what actuarial science was. In fact, up to the day when I qualified and I asked my dad, so Dad, do you now still remember what I told you actuarial science is all about? And he said, yeah, I remember. And he said, yeah, you guys work with computers, right?
Yes.
So that was his understanding of actuarial science. And, then obviously what the kind of support I got from him and my mom was more of a moral support, which is also very important. I can go on to cite many other people that have supported from the sidelines, but those were the main people.
Special, Elash. Thank you so much for sharing that, and amazing to hear both the accounting profession and the actuarial profession have to be grateful, obviously to you and Joseph, but also to that special person who helped you through all of this. Absolutely amazing to hear that story. Thank you. And I can imagine after all of this, your understanding of resilience must have completely shifted as you've gone from experience to experience, as trying as each one of them have been. Can you maybe help us understand a little bit about how your understanding has evolved over the course of your actuarial journey?
Sure, yes. When I started out, for me, resilience was every time you fail, you try again. And, that's a bit mixed with determination. Sometimes stupidity, I would say, or stubbornness. But yeah, that was my initial understanding of resilience. Later on, I realized that if you mix hard work with a bit of intelligence and being smart, and convert hard work to being smart, you can actually make it easier to be resilient. So we can work hard and continue working, but if we just take the time and look back and say, what small thing can I change here that will make this whole thing easier? And I'll tell you what happened to me. I used to think that studying at night was the best thing for me to do. Because after studying, I would go and reward myself with a good rest and be fresh the next day for work. Um, and I used to love all the good food, especially the wheat-based stuff. Right, I loved it, but I had an allergy to wheat. So what happened was I used to study at night, and firstly I was tired from work, and secondly I was tired from the wheat, the allergy that was affecting me. And for a long time, I kept on sticking to this. It was difficult. I didn't have the willpower to change it, um, and to start a different routine. Until eventually someone told me, I used to always ask people for advice in terms of how do I get past these exams? It's taking me so long. And someone told me, if you've taken so long and you haven't finished, then you don't want this badly enough. And that made me think, to say, what do I need to do to change this? So firstly, I had made that decision to say, okay, if I don't pass this time round, I'm dropping it. But I had made a few changes. The one was I started studying in the morning, when my mind was fresh. I can tell you, it took me like a week or two to get used to waking up at 3 in the morning. But when I eventually got it right, the studying was so effective in those early hours. Your brain is just ready to take it in. And instead of just sitting there and pretending to be studying or just ticking the box, I was actually absorbing. And that's when I passed my exam. So resilience with a bit of smart thinking makes you even more resilient, or easier, it makes it easier to become resilient. Now I've come up with a third element. And that's just recently, in fact, in the past year or so. And that third element is purpose. If you know why you're doing this, you're going to want to do it. And that makes it so much easier, because now you're bringing the heart into it, not just the mind. If you're passionate about something, you become passionate because you know why you're doing it. You want to do it. And then you don't even have to work hard or smart anymore. You just want to do it. And that's how my understanding of resilience has changed over time.
Exceptional, Elash. I mean, such a mix of knowing yourself, knowing wellness, general wellness, how to look after yourself, and the flexibility then to change habits. I mean, given everything that you have gone through, still to be able to take a step back and be flexible and change your habits are absolutely inspirational to hear. So thank you for sharing that. Um, I wanna maybe take the next bit of our conversation a little bit into the workplace, if that's okay.
Sure.
And I think you've already given us some really useful insights on how you use spreadsheets and how you build models and how you actually visualize charts. But maybe you just want to, if there's anything else you want to add to that, just about how you approach building and then working with models, either models you built, models someone else has built in your day-to-day role right now at Hanover. How does it, how do you actually sort of pull all this together? at the
Yeah,
requirements of the workplace?
sure. Like I said, so fortunately, Excel is a grid, and one can think in terms of rows and columns, so it's easy to navigate. Um, One can possibly talk about a spreadsheet without looking at it, because of the coordinates and the layout. Um, and I use that then to visualize the spreadsheet, because what I didn't mention is that with the Braille display, you have what I call tunnel vision.
Mm,
You're only seeing what's at the tips of your two index fingers at any one point in time, which is very different to looking at a screen and having an overall view of a big chunk of the spreadsheet.
mm,
So naturally, then what you're doing is you're scanning the spreadsheet and forming this picture in your head. And once you have this picture in your head, then it's easy to navigate. But you're basically using your mind to navigate as opposed to the screen. Your fingers then are just confirming what you're seeing on the Braille display to say, I said I pressed F5 to go to A11. Am I really on A11? You know, um, so that's the one thing, is the navigation and orientation. It takes a bit longer when I'm trying to understand what someone else did in their spreadsheet.
mm,
Often what I would do is sit with that person and ask for a description of their spreadsheet. In terms of models, I keep my models very simple, which helps both with my navigation as well as for people to understand my model. Um, I also use macros a lot. So there are certain things like pivot tables in Excel that are not accessible with the screen reader.
mm,
And if I use that spreadsheet often enough, I would develop macros or inbuilt functions to actually perform the equivalence of what a pivot table would do. Um, so fortunately, I love coding, and I don't get enough of it. So I would use it to my advantage. I've done a similar thing with a trading platform. So I have a bit of a hobby in trading in crypto. And the trading platform was not accessible with the screen reader. So what I did was I built a little program for myself using the API, and I basically trade from the back end. So
oh,
uh, I must say there are ways around getting around these challenges. Uh, Models can get complex. I am a bit slower in terms of understanding the layout of a model. It's very quick when you have sight, but there are ways around it, and it's not impossible. Having said that, I must say there are some limitations. So if you have a big set of data, forming a graph, graphing that data gives you a quick understanding of what the trends are. You don't have that when you're looking at just the data. You'll have to scroll down the column and sort of try and get some understanding of what it is. So yes, there are some limitations, but having worked now for quite a while, I can tell you that there are ways around those limitations.
mm. Oh, thanks, Yash. And I think you mentioned a little bit earlier about your university lecture was excellent at explaining things verbally when the visualization is required. Is it helpful when any of your colleagues sit with you and trying to explain a spreadsheet in front of you?
Yeah,
Does it actually hinder your process?
yeah, no, it is helpful. One has to direct, so you've got to ask, or almost direct what they describe and how they do it. And my colleagues eventually have gotten used to what they need to tell me.
Hmm.
Um, and then the second or third time round, it's much easier. Um, but it definitely helps. It speeds things up, instead of trying to figure out. I remember at some point I used to struggle a lot when people used to merge cells, because you're thinking of this grid with single, cells, and you merge a heading and you're going one line down, but you're not going immediately below. You're going to some other cell within that merged range, So that was always a challenge. But now we've found ways around it. So simple things like that often a spreadsheet that looks nice is difficult to navigate. So people would sometimes put a button in a spreadsheet, to say, if you want to run a macro, hit this button. Unfortunately, the screen reader doesn't show these buttons. But the workaround is to go behind the scenes to the macro behind that button and run it, right? So as long as I know there's a button there, I know there's a macro. But if you didn't tell me there's a button there, I wouldn't even know there's a macro unless I actively go and check.
Yeah.
So there's these challenges, and it definitely helps to have some kind of verbal assistance for sure.
Yeah. Okay. No, that's excellent. Good to know there's still some help available out there from colleagues, from helpful colleagues. And I think if we extend this then to maybe computers and AI helping you. I mean, with the rise of AI and advanced analytics, how do you see this technology changing accessibility and productivity, both for yourself, but then also maybe for the broader profession?
So AI is going to help tremendously with accessibility. Firstly, access to information. So I can take a scanned document, which is a picture, which I can't normally read with my screen reader, and ask AI to convert that to text for me. I could previously do that with an optical character recognition OCR program. But now, that would normally give some errors. AI is doing it far more accurately, to the extent that AI can sometimes read out handwriting, so that's amazing.
Hmm.
The other thing about AI is it's a bit of a hate story. So I told you I used to spend hours converting material to be accessible. We used to get our notes, fortunately, in electronic format at some point from the Actuarial Society. And the notes would have equation boxes in them wherever there was mathematical notation. So when those equation boxes are in the document, they become pictures. And behind the scenes, there's code. So I had to go and take that code out of the equation box and put it in the ordinary text of the document
Oh,
using that notation that I spoke about earlier. Later on, they developed, languages like MATLAB and LaTeX that was used for that coding. So coming back to my story then, I once had to Google something that was quite complex mathematically. And I used the AI mode and I said, please convert any mathematical notation into plain text, similar to coding language like LaTeX. And I was so surprised at what it threw out. It threw out the notation that I used to use, So I was like, if I had this long ago, this would have saved so much of time. And maybe I would have gotten more exemptions.
yeah. Wow.
AI is also now, quite good at describing images if you get the prompts right. Um, I use AI in a lot of research for my DIY work, where it would describe a tool to me. So I use some specialized tools, and it would describe it to me to the extent that I can actually have a visual idea of what this tool is and what it does. Um, One of the companies have also developed a pair of glasses where you can wear this pair of glasses, and if you face in a certain direction or look at a poster or something at a store, in the background it does all the searches on the internet and then gives you feedback as a blind person to say, you're looking at a box of cereal and this is what the ingredients are. So yeah, AI is amazing in that regard.
Oh,
I think AI, the flip side of it is that it's going to make us lazy. It will initially free up time for other tasks. So if we're able to get rid of the mundane tasks and use AI for that, it will free up time for more strategic, higher level thinking, which I feel we don't have enough time for right now. But I think that once it becomes the norm, we're going to become lazy and hope that AI does everything for us. We're going to lose a lot of ability. Memory is already not being used as much as it used to. Memory and I think skills of handwriting, maybe typing will even disappear. So yeah, I fear the long-term consequences.
Yeah, look, I've always thought AI, actuaries that use AI and actuaries that don't use AI is generally the way people think about the world. But I think you're right, actually. It's about the laziness. I think it's people that are using AI to complement their thinking will probably outpace those that are using AI to replace their thinking altogether. And I think that's the bit that we all need to be a little bit cognizant of. It's really good to hear, though, that you and the AI are completely aligned when it comes to symbols and notations and making life very
I
easy.
mean,
I think,
at this stage, we still take everything from AI with a pinch of salt.
yes,
But I think when we get to the point where we're going to completely trust AI, we may be moving into a bit of dangerous territory.
yes, exactly. Oh, fantastic. And then tell me back to maybe the work environment, Elash there. So from your experience, what can employers, your colleagues, you've already explained a little bit, but maybe more generally, and then the wide actuarial profession do to make work environments more inclusive for people of all abilities? Have you sort of noticed any structural barriers that you sort of seen over time that you think should be addressed more systematically?
Yes, Nalen, I think there's a lot that can be done. I must say, though, that we've come a long way since I started working. Um, in terms of barriers, there's obviously software out there that is designed for a sighted person, that we're expected to use in the work environment, and very often little consideration is given to whether that software is accessible. Sometimes it's software that you can overlook. At other times, it's very important software, and not having access to that puts us at a disadvantage. Um, I don't say that we shouldn't be using such software. I'm just saying we should make it accessible, because in this day and age, it is possible to make almost anything accessible. The other big thing is assumptions.
Mm.
We often make assumptions based on, when I say assumptions, I'm not talking about actuarial assumptions. I'm talking about assumptions that help us to navigate the world, things that we assume without even knowing.
Mm.
Um, and that comes from our historic exposure. So whatever our exposure is will lead to the assumptions we make about the capabilities and potential of people with disabilities. I think an awareness of making assumptions that may be unfounded is very important, um, because what that does is, as much as we say we want to make everything equal and inclusive, the attitude with which we're approaching that attempt uh, is then very much colored by the subconscious assumption.
Mm.
Um, so we may be saying that by law we have to make things accessible. The spirit of the company is that we try and include everyone. But if me as an individual, I believe in the back of my mind that I don't think this is actually possible for this person to do, I'm going to be just approaching that to tick the box, as opposed to really wanting to make it work.
Mm.
Now, I tell you this because of Reiki. Reiki had never been exposed to a blind person before, but she never made any of those assumptions because she was aware that making any assumptions could disadvantage these people. Had she given up the day we approached her for assistance, we would never have qualified.
Mm.
Um, and I think, not everyone's attitude is going to change with the flick of a switch. It's a matter of time. From our side, people with disabilities need to have patience and understand that not everybody has the exposure that we expect them to have. And only once they see things happening will they probably change their attitude. So I, for example, each time I had a new manager, never mind a new job, within the same job, each time you have a new manager, you have to prove yourself again and again.
Mm.
And it was frustrating initially, but eventually developed some maturity to say it's not that person's fault. It's just a lack of exposure.
Mm.
And then slowly we change. And maybe after the first spreadsheet or two that they see built and believe that you did it on your own and someone didn't do it for you,
Yeah.
then they start building some trust, right? But it takes both sides, and I think that's the way to do it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's fantastic. I mean, it's a call. Your call to action is for all of us here. I mean, to work on our limiting beliefs, to work on our unconscious biases, to give people a chance to be open-minded when we engage with everyone, really. And I think your stories here really brought this to life. And again, I'm so glad you mentioned Reiki again, the person that sort of embodies this the spirit that we need as we go out and build this more inclusive society of ours. Um, Elash, I'm conscious of time, so I'm not going to get a chance to maybe explore fully all the themes that I was hoping to, but I did want to ask you maybe sort of one or two more questions, if that's okay. I mean, the
So,
first one was just a little bit about, you've spoken about purpose and you've spoken about meaning, but just help us understand, how has your definition of success changed as your career has progressed?
oh yeah, it has changed drastically. That I will say. When I started out, success for me was qualifying as an actuary. I later then changed that to say, for me, actually, success is should be based on the number of obstacles you overcome in order to achieve that qualification. Um, and now I'm at the stage where I think success is actually driven by purpose. Um, so I may qualify as an actuary, but of what good is that? If it doesn't bring happiness to me and I'm unable to add value to other people's lives. And that's where I'm at the moment. I believe I need to still become successful by making this meaningful to others, um, and also starting to find that purpose for myself and connecting the two. Um, so I still don't, based on my new definition, I still don't regard myself as successful.
I think it is heartwarming to hear that despite everything you have achieved, to all of the people around you, and can see so clearly that you are continuously expanding your definition. And it is wonderful. It is absolutely wonderful to see. And I have no doubt that you will be powering on to even greater heights after this. So thank you. Thank you so much for sharing that, Gilash. We are coming very close to the end of our session. And so I did want to, before I gave you a chance to make any final comments, I did want to open it up to the audience. I see from the Q&A we have nothing right now in that Q&A section, and then in the chat, I think there was one question that, thank you, Yesida has already Yesida answered. A question from Ernest that Yesida has answered. Um, are there any comments or questions or anything? I mean, there's been lots of comments, at least in the chat. Wow, Elash, you're such an inspiration. Thanks for this talk. Resilience, hard work with smart thinking and purpose. Elash, you are an absolute legend, my friend. So lots and lots of comments, really positive comments. But are there any questions from anybody before we wrap? So I don't see anything in the chat. And so with that, then I'm going to move into our closing reflections section before handing back to Yesida. So Elash, I just want to give you my thanks for spending time with us today. If there is one message or principle that you hope participants would take away from today's conversation, what would it be?
Sure. Yeah, that's a tough one. But what comes to mind when you ask that question is just to say, follow your heart. Actuarial science, the study of it and your pursuit of that career um, could be the right thing, or it could be the wrong thing, and your heart will tell you the difference. And always follow your heart, whether you're in a professional setting or in your personal life. I believe that the heart will never mislead you.
A fantastic way to end, Elash. Thank you very much. I really appreciate your time. And with that, I hand over back to Yesida or Yvonne.
Thanks, Nalen, and thanks so much, Elash. That was amazing. I felt like I was sitting here listening to one of those wise elders. You're sitting, wise elder, listening to them speaking, like, impart all your wisdom on me, please. Because you speak, Elash, like you're so emotionally intelligent. And I think it's just wonderful to hear your story. And actually, I had put a question in there. It got in there really late. I was trying to type really quickly because Elash is so inspiring. And he has so much good things to say. I wanted to find out what really irritates him because I'm sure there are things that irritate him that maybe sighted people do. I know you mentioned the thing about merging cells that sighted people do that maybe you would love to get off your chest. Well, I would love to find out if there is something like that. Maybe just before we close. Ela.
Yeah, there is. I will share it with you. You know, it's often difficult to fit into the sighted world, and when you try, and people would make jokes of your blindness initially to make things light. That is a good thing because then you're warming up and you're building a rapport. But when they continue with that and are not willing to allow the friendship to become deeper, that becomes irritating because all basically what it says is that all you're seeing about me is my blindness, not the fact that I'm human. Not that I can be a friend. I can only be a person that you can joke about in terms of blindness. So, yeah, that's the one thing. But I must say, it's not that irritating. It is irritating, but I look for deep friendships with people, and that's how I get meaning in life. And when that is blocked, then it becomes quite an irritation. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much. That's thanks for that insight. And I'll just echo what Nalen said. Reading all the comments in the comment section, everybody is saying how inspiring this is, and it's amazing. So thank you so much for being here, and thank you as well to Nalen for um, being the moderator for this. We really appreciate both of you, and it has been wonderful. So we just have a couple of announcements now as AADA, just before we close. So I'm just gonna share my screen really quickly for the announcements. And apologies, I'm going to try and describe what's in the presentation. It is a presentation. I know you talked about how that doesn't work out so well, so I will try my best. So first we have our next webinar, which is happening on February 12th. So that's next week, Thursday. And that is a part two of our validation of educational experience that we had with societies of actuaries. So this one is now understanding the SOA UCAP program, which helps in terms of recognition for universities within Africa. And in that webinar, we'll have two specialists from the Society of Actuaries presenting on what the UCAP program is and how to apply for it. And then we'll follow that with a panel of four experts from across Africa. We've got Kenya,
Nigeria, Egypt, and Cameroon represented. So they're going to talk about their experiences with UCAP in their universities. So that's next week, Thursday, February 12th at 1 p.m. Greenwich Mean Time. Please extrapolate to what that means for your local time. And we do have barcodes on each of these slides so that you can scan and register. But all of this is also on our LinkedIn page. The next announcement, oh, and my page move, there we go. Also sticking with the SOA, they have a Train the Trainer faculty training intensive that is happening. Actually, the timelines haven't been set, but applications are open right now, so you can express interest. And they're actually supporting university professors in doing this with some scholarships available. It's only for university professors in Africa, Middle East, and Asia. Again, we have a barcode on the screen where you can scan to express your interest. One thing that we want to say about this opportunity, there is no closing date, but they are interviewing people on a rolling basis. So as you express interest, they are interviewing people and they will close it as soon as they have the numbers for their program. So please, if you're a university professor or if you're a student and you can alert your university professor, please tell them about this opportunity. Again, that is on our LinkedIn page as well. The next item, I think we had Ernest from the US on the chat asking about this. So we have a joint webinar with the International Association of Black Actuaries in the US called Going Global, What It Takes to Build an Actuarial Career in Africa. So very timely, would address your question. We're addressing your question, Ernest, with a whole webinar. And again, this is a panel discussion. So we've again gotten panelists from across Africa. We've got Kenya, Cameroon again, interestingly, Zambia and Ghana stroke Nigeria represented. And somebody will be hosting it from the US. This time it's on March the 3rd, slightly later, 5 p.m. Greenwich Mean Time, because we are catching more of a US audience. So again, there is a barcode on the screen where you can register, but this will be posted on our LinkedIn page again, so you can click on the link. And we have a few other upcoming events. So we have a mortality table development panel as well. So we've gathered again people from across Africa that have started developing their own mortality tables. We know South Africa is very experienced with this already, and actually a lot of them modeled what they're doing on South Africa. But we want people to learn about their own experiences, particularly for the smaller markets. So please tune in. That will be March 12th at 1 p.m. GMT. That hasn't been advertised yet on our LinkedIn page, but follow our LinkedIn page. There's a barcode on this slide, so you can follow the LinkedIn page to follow us so you can get the updates when this is advertised. We also have two other opportunities. We're working with the International Association of Black Actuaries to do a boot camp that will teach soft skills for students. So that should be coming up in the next few months as well. And then we're also working on exam tutorials. So please watch out for a call for tutors for those that have passed exams recently or are inclined to teach, for administrators who might help us just administrate and coordinate, and also for the exam candidates. We will be offering scholarships and tutorials for this. So please pay attention and apply. And then lastly, please do catch us as the 7th African Actuarial Congress, March 22nd to 24th. So myself and Yasida will be there. I think, Mukami, I just heard that maybe you'll be there too. So apologies that your picture's not on here. But it seems you might get the trifecta of all the AADA ladies at this conference. So it happens every couple of years. For those people that don't know about it, it's a conference for people actuaries across Africa. Happens every couple of years. It's going to be in Cotonou, Benin in March. We've put the website on the page, https://7aac.apsa.bj/. I tried. So please, you can register on that. I think it'll be a great place for us to all convene as actuaries in Africa and share ideas. So that's all we have for you guys today. We're just ending with our normal call to action slide where you can get our contact details, contact at aada.africa, also our website, www.aada.africa, and again, a QR code where you can follow us on LinkedIn. So with that, I will say thank you, everybody, for joining us. Thank you so much, Elash and Nalen. And we will see you guys again, hopefully on March 12th. Have a good day, everybody. Bye-bye.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.